to my mind. Let me talk about girls. I mean girls.
Close your eyes for just a second. Picture this. It's a warm summer evening. The windows are down, the radio is crackling, and then it happens. A song comes on.
Sit down, I think I love you anyway.
And just like that, you're not here anymore. You're back. Back to a time when life felt wide open, when love felt brand new, when the whole world was ahead of you. That's the magic of the 1960s.
Talk about girls. I mean girls. Talk about.
No decade in music history has that kind of power. Those songs didn't just play on the radio. They became the soundtrack of some of the most important moments of your life. And today, we're going back to find 10 of them. We're not talking about the ones you already hear on every oldies station. We're talking about the ones that hit a little deeper, the ones that made your heart race, the ones that made you feel seen. And I promise you this, by the time we reach number 1, at least one of these songs is going to stop you right in your tracks.
Come on, try it. Try it.
So stay with us all the way through, because the best is absolutely saved for last. Let's go. Number 10. I'm 5 years ahead of my time, by the Third Bardo.
Look ahead, don't look behind. 5 years ahead of my time.
We're kicking things off with a song that almost no one remembers by name, but the moment you hear it, something stirs. The Third Bardo.
5 years ahead of my time. Look to my mind.
The name alone sounds like it belongs in another dimension, and honestly, their music does too.
Don't waste any time, girl. Step into my mind.
Released in 1967, I'm 5 years ahead of my time was one of those rare tracks that felt like it came from a place nobody else had found yet.
5 years ahead of my time.
It was raw, it was fuzzy, it was psychedelic before psychedelic was a word people tossed around casually. The guitars practically rattled out of the speakers, and the vocals had that urgent, almost desperate quality that only the 60s could produce.
It may seem like I'm coming on strong.
It bubbled under the Billboard Hot 100, peaking just outside the top tier. But you know what? Charts never told the whole story. Some songs were too ahead of their time to be understood when they first arrived. And this was absolutely one of them. If you were a teenager in 1967 with a transistor radio pressed to your ear late at night, there's a good chance this one found you.
I know just where it's at for me.
Do you remember the first time a song made you feel like it was speaking just to you? Because that's exactly what the Third Bardo were going for. Stick around, because number 9 is about to take you somewhere a little softer. Number 9, Please Don't Ever Leave Me, by the Cyrkle.
Please don't ever leave, don't leave.
Now, most people remember the Cyrkle for Red Rubber Ball, that cheerful, bouncy little tune that just refused to leave your head once it got in.
Won't you stay, please don't take away the only.
But Please Don't Ever Leave Me is a whole different feeling. This one has weight to it. There's a vulnerability in those harmonies that the 1960s did better than any decade before or since. Young men in suits, singing about the kind of fear that comes with loving someone so much that the thought of losing them keeps you up at night.
If you ever leave.
If you were falling in love for the first time in 1966, this song understood you completely. The Cyrkle were actually managed by Brian Epstein, the same man who guided the Beatles to stardom. That's no small thing. There was real talent behind this group, real craftsmanship. And yet, like so many acts of that era, they never quite got the lasting recognition they deserved.
Girl, won't you try to believe me? Girl, don't you know?
Think about where you were in 1966. Who were you thinking about? There's probably a face that just came to mind, isn't there? Music does that. It unlocks doors you thought were sealed shut. Now, from tender love songs, we're shifting gears. Number 8 is All Fire. Number 8, You Don't Know Like I Know, by Sam and Dave.
You don't know like I know what that woman has done.
If the Cyrkle made you feel, Sam and Dave made you move. Full stop.
I told her like a miracle, everything.
There was nobody in the 1960s who could work a room, work a song, work a feeling, quite like Sam Moore and Dave Prater. You Don't Know Like I Know came out of the legendary Stax Records out of Memphis, Tennessee.
She burned her living. home and just too bad.
And if you know anything about Stax, you know they didn't make records. They made experiences. The horn section on this track doesn't just accompany the song. It argues with it. It pushes back. It celebrates right alongside the vocals.
But she won't, all that.
Sam and Dave had that rare thing, a chemistry that couldn't be manufactured or faked. When they called to each other across the microphone, it sounded like two men who genuinely needed each other to tell the truth. And the truth in this song was simple. Nobody knows this feeling the way I do. Can you feel that horn section even now, just thinking about it? That's what great music does. It lives in your body, not just your memory. Keep that energy going, because number 7 is one of the great underdog stories of the entire decade. Number 7, Girl, You Captivate Me, by Question Mark and the Mysterians. Now, you might know Question Mark and the Mysterians from 96 Tears, that haunting, organ-drenched anthem that seemed to echo off every gymnasium wall from coast to coast. But Girl, You Captivate Me is the song that shows you who they really were underneath all that mystique. This was a group of working-class kids from Michigan, many of them the children of immigrants, playing music that was so simple it was almost defiant. No polish, no studio magic, just raw feeling poured into an electric organ and a microphone. And somehow that was enough. The lead singer, who everyone knew only as Question Mark, never took off his sunglasses, never told the world his secrets, and that mystery became part of the music itself. There was something in his voice, a longing that felt completely unguarded, like he was saying the thing out loud that nobody else would dare to say. Girl, you captivate me. Haven't we all felt that? That complete, helpless pull toward someone? The 60s had a way of putting enormous feelings into the simplest words. And that, right there, is why these songs still hit. Coming up at number 6, we go somewhere dreamier and a little cosmic. Number 6, My World Fell Down by Sagittarius. Sagittarius. Even the name sounds like it belongs somewhere between the stars. And in a way, it did. This was a studio project born out of the California sunshine, built by some of the most gifted session musicians of the entire decade. And My World Fell Down is nothing short of a small miracle. Released in 1967, right in the heart of the summer of love, this track blended strings, layered harmonies, and an almost orchestral scope that felt completely out of place on AM radio. Which is exactly why it was perfect for AM radio. It stopped you cold. The song tells the story of heartbreak in the most cinematic way. When the world you've built around one person suddenly doesn't exist anymore. That feeling of walking through the same streets, seeing the same sights, but everything looking completely different now that they're gone. If you've ever loved and lost, and most of us have, this song spoke the language of that grief better than almost anything else from that era. Gorgeous, heartbreaking, and criminally underheard. Do you remember a time when a song felt like it had been written just for what you were going through? That's Sagittarius. Let's keep moving, because number 5 has a beat you simply cannot sit still to. Number 5, The Train, by 1910 Fruit Gum Company.
Oh, train, hurry up, bring my baby back, hallelujah.
All right, let's lighten the mood. Because the 1960s weren't all heartbreak and existential wonder. Sometimes, it was just pure, unapologetic fun.
Bring my baby back, hallelujah, look, it's coming on down the track.
And nobody delivered that quite like the 1910 Fruit Gum Company. Now, they're most famous for Simon Says, that irresistible bubblegum classic that turned every living room into a dance floor.
My heart is keeping rhythm with the train on the track, oh, train.
But the train deserves its moment in the spotlight. It's joyful, it's rhythmic. It moves the way a song should move when you want people to forget their worries for 3 minutes. Bubblegum pop gets dismissed sometimes. Critics called it too simple, too bright, too cheerful. But you know what? The people who say that forget what it felt like to be young and have no bigger problem than figuring out the steps to a new dance.
Train, hurry up, bring my baby back. Hallelujah, look, it's coming.
There was real artistry in the ability to make people happy that purely. Close your eyes and picture a Saturday afternoon in 1968. Someone's got the record player going. The carpet is being worn down by people dancing. The laughter is easy. The joy is real. That's what the train brings back. And honestly, couldn't we all use a little of that? Number 4 is going to feel a lot more intimate. Number 4, Sit Down, I Think I Love You, by the Mojo Men.
Sit down, I think I love you anyway.
From San Francisco, at the height of the city's most electric era, came the Mojo Men, with a song that gets overlooked far too often.
I can't stop thinking of you.
Sit Down, I Think I Love You, is one of those titles that does exactly what a great title should do. It stops you before the music even starts. The original version of this song was actually written by Stephen Stills, before Crosby, Stills and Nash, before any of that. And the Mojo Men took it and wrapped it in the warm, slightly hazy sound of late 60s California, and made it entirely their own.
If you want someone to love you.
There's something in that hesitation at the heart of the song. I think I love you. Not a declaration, not a certainty, a realization happening in real time.
Sit down, I think I love you.
And if you were young and sitting across from someone who made your palms sweat and your thoughts scatter, you understood exactly what that felt like. The 60s had this beautiful ability to make the uncertain feel romantic rather than terrifying. Love was worth the risk. The unknown was worth stepping into. Do you remember that feeling? Because number 3 is about to bring it back in a very different way. Number 3, Let's Talk About Girls, by the Chocolate Watchband.
Talk about girls, I mean girls. Talk about
The Chocolate Watchband. If the name doesn't ring a bell, that's a genuine shame. Because this California garage rock band was one of the most electrifying live acts of the entire decade. And Let's Talk About Girls captures exactly why. This wasn't polished pop. This wasn't anything designed for the mainstream.
turns me on when she gives me the eye.
This was the sound of young men who had seen the Rolling Stones and decided they wanted that dangerous, untamed energy for themselves. The guitars grind, the rhythm doesn't apologize, and the whole thing moves like it might fall apart at any second, but somehow it never does. In 1967, while flowers were being put in rifle barrels and everyone was talking about peace and love, bands like the Chocolate Watchband were reminding you that rock and roll was also supposed to feel a little like danger.
Talk about girls. Talk about girls.
That it was supposed to make your parents nervous and your pulse quicken. This is the sound of a generation testing its limits, of a world expanding so fast that even the music couldn't quite contain itself.
Talk about girls. Talk about girls.
Did you ever sneak out of the house to hear music like this? Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Number 2 is darker, edgier, and absolutely unforgettable. Number 2, Try It, by the Standells.
Come on, try it. Try it. Try it.
The Standells are best known for Dirty Water, that anthem of scruffy Boston pride that has been played at Fenway Park after every Red Sox win for decades.
Think you've seen it all, but you don't know what's in store.
But Try It is where they showed their true grit. Released in 1967, Try It was actually banned by a number of radio stations, which, if you know anything about the 1960s, is practically a seal of approval. When the gatekeepers of polite society decided a song was too much, that usually meant it was hitting exactly the nerve it intended to hit.
Just give the word and my good lovin' will start.
The song has that same raw, defiant energy that made garage rock the underground heartbeat of the decade. It wasn't asking for permission. It wasn't softening its edges for anyone. And for a generation of young people who were increasingly tired of being told how to feel, how to think, and what was acceptable, music like this was oxygen. The Standells put something real on that record.
A feverish pitch that's headed straight for your heart, yeah.
Something that cut through the noise. And now, 50 plus years later, it still does. That edge hasn't gone anywhere. Are you ready for number one? Because this one is special. And it might just surprise you more than anything else on this list. Number 1, Time Will Show the Wiser by Fairport Convention.
But only time will show the wiser.
And here we are, number 1. And if you've never heard the name Fairport Convention before today, I want you to know something. You're about to discover one of the most important bands you've never heard of. And I say that with complete sincerity.
And this is so confusing, it's tearing me apart.
Fairport Convention came out of North London in the late 1960s, and they had something almost nobody else in the world had at that moment. They had a young woman named Sandy Denny on vocals, and Sandy Denny's voice is one of those rare, once-in-a-generation things. Haunting, warm, ancient and young at the same time. The kind of voice that makes you stop whatever you're doing. Time Will Show the Wiser was one of their earliest recordings, and it captures a feeling that the whole decade was wrestling with. The sense that everything is changing, that the world you grew up in is shifting beneath your feet, that the certainties of your childhood are dissolving. But underneath all of that uncertainty, there is something steady, time. And time, eventually, will reveal what's true.
Well, I wish someone would help me. This decision is mine.
Isn't that something we've all needed to believe at some point? That if we just hold on, if we just keep going, the picture will eventually become clear. The 60s were a decade that asked enormous questions about justice, about freedom, about what it meant to be human in a world that was changing faster than anyone could have predicted. And the music asked those questions too.
But only time will show the wiser.
Fairport Convention didn't get the fame of the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. But ask any serious music lover and they'll tell you, they were something completely extraordinary. And Time Will Show the Wiser is the proof. A song that was ahead of its time in 1968 and somehow still feels ahead of its time today.
I've fallen in love with a girl that's not mine.
10 songs, 10 doors back to a decade that changed everything. From the raw energy of the Standells to the cosmic yearning of Sagittarius. From the joyful stomp of the 1910 Fruit Gum Company to the quiet, transcendent beauty of Fairport Convention.
Oh, train, hurry up, bring my baby back, hallelujah. Look.
Every single one of them carries a piece of who you were and what the world felt like back then.
Look ahead, don't look behind, 5 years ahead of my time.
Music from the 1960s doesn't just play, it transports. And I think deep down that's why you're here. Because some part of you wanted to go back, even just for a little while. To remember what it felt like when the whole world was new, and anything seemed possible.
You don't know like I know what that woman has done.
So tell me, which one got you? Which song took you somewhere? Was it a place, a face, a summer evening you thought you'd almost forgotten? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and I genuinely love hearing your stories. And if this list stirred something in you, hit that like button and subscribe to Decade Legends. Because we do this every week. We go back. We find the forgotten. We bring home the songs that still matter. The ones that still have something to say to the person you are right now. Thank you for being here. Take care of each other, and we'll see you in the next one.
Sit down.